Mr. Benjamin is going to give us a talk about what's been happening with our committee. Has met with Hayes Center twice. And so Mr. Benjamin will tell us a little bit about what that committee's been doing and where we are so far. And then we will open it up after that for community input.
Good evening, folks. Thanks for coming out tonight. As Sherry stated, we've gotten together. The Growth and Expansion Committee for both schools have gotten together and discussed certain things. Mr. Primavera and myself have had a few discussions on the phone. And from that, we've just kind of put a proposal together and ideas at this point. I'll go through this and afterwards fire away all your questions. The mission of the cooperation is, our goal is to create a cooperation that benefits both school districts by securing the student numbers needed to field teams and build competitive programs in all sports. Logistics with the games. We would divide the home games between the two schools. If the team was traveling from the west, we would play at Hayes Center. If the team was traveling from the east, we would play here. And then kind of the tweener, north-south or whatever, we would use those to divide them up as evenly as possible. For away games, we want to try to meet at places like Highway 83, Wallace, Maywood, etc., so we can have our bus go there, take turns with that, or just common sense, get on the bus together, and then go to the events. Practices. The teams will do their best to practice together 3 times a week for the fall and winter sports. Okay? In the spring, the track teams will practice at their home sites for almost all practices. The only reason we probably would have us get together in spring is maybe for relays, things like that, when we needed to work on a few of those items. On Monday, or at least one time a week, both teams will stay at their home sites and practice. I'll use football as an example. On Monday, that's a light practice. You're still getting some of the soreness out of you. We would stay at both sites, do fundamentals, watch film. That's a pretty typical Monday day. The reason I'd say not always Monday is like volleyball sometimes has a match on a Monday. So that throws that out of there. At some other point, we're going to both stay home. Maywood will practice at Hayes Center once every 2 weeks. We will have a coach CDL certified to drive the team to and from practice. Now, after 2 years of that situation, if Hayes Center has 40% of the total athletes in all sports at the first day of practice for fall and or winter, Maywood would then practice once a week in Hayes Center. Okay? And so the first day of practice in the fall, we will take a total count of all the athletes out. And if 65% of them are Maywood and 35% were Hayes Center, it'd still be once every 2 weeks. But regardless of the situation for 2 years, it is going to be once every 2 weeks. We will not go into percentages until year 3. The travel and the road. We completely understand that the road between our districts is not the most ideal. When it rains, snows, and or other issues arise that make the road hazardous to travel, each school will practice that day at their own schools. So when the weather gets bad, we're going to have to be able to practice at our own place. We're not going to put kids out there in a hazardous situation. Each school will be responsible for having a certified bus driver take them to and from practice each day. For ourselves, Maywood plans on having various coaches for the fall and winter sports getting their bus driver's permit, so we have someone always available to drive and reduce travel expenditures. We don't want to have to be able, we want to avoid having to pay a bus driver. Do that once every 2 weeks. To kind of explain the athlete's daily schedule, because in a sense, for Hayes Center, we're adding an hour 20 of travel time on them on a good day, and for, probably 5 or 6 days in 2 weeks, and us once every 2 weeks. Each school will have their student athletes get on the bus for practice at 3:30. We get out of school at 3:44. For us, we are going to move our A team to 8th period to make this happen. And so our athletes that are traveling then on that one day, they will not go to A team that one day, and we will get on the bus. Okay? And I shouldn't say that. It's a wrong typo up here. They'll get out of school at 3:30, but they're going to go change at their home site right away. And we want them on the bus by 3:45. 15 minutes to get out, get changed on the bus, 3:45. If we do that, we believe we can get practice started at 4:30. Practices will run no longer than 1 hour and 45 minutes. Students will return to their school no later than 7 p.m. For Hayes Center, schools can do drop-offs on the way home for students that live in between the trip to save them some time there. The majority of their kids either live in Hayes Center or are on the east side, so they'll figure some things out. Here's the other thing with our 1 day a week. We will make sure we try to hit it on a day where it's like the day before the game. That way, the reality is you're not even going to practice for an hour 45. When I was coaching day before a game, I was always done at an hour 15. So with that then, if we're smart with that, 7's the very latest, and I'm saying our kids will be home from 6:30 to 7. Schedule for athletic events. We will use Maywood's athletic schedule for the events in grades 9 through 12. Hayes Center was more than likely forfeiting their football games due to numbers, but still can play this next year with Maywood. Mr. Primavera, myself, and Mr. Brown, our new administrator, coming on, will be working with each other to get the schedules and officiating cleaned up and ready to roll. Coaching. Each school will have at least one coach for the following sports: football, volleyball, girls and boys basketball, and track. What I can tell you about ours is we are not changing how many coaches we have for next year. So whoever's been our head coach and our assistant coach, because we've been running two, they will stay on. However, their titles may change. Each school will have representation of head coaches in those sports. We're not saying it'll be even, but we are saying there will be head coaches coming from Hayes Center and head coaches from our school district. The board, committees, Mr. Primavera and myself will make the decisions for coaching positions for this upcoming year. Summer activities. Open gyms for sports will be run at both schools, and the athletes will be able to do them at either site. All sports will be utilizing a universal weightlifting program in the summer that all athletes will be required to follow. The weight room will be open at both sites, And the athletes can use either site to get their lifts in. Requirements for weight training in the summer will be a piece to all our athletic sports moving forward. Head coaches will be building their summer plans with their respected sports and will be available to both schools this summer. We need them playing together as soon as possible to ensure success. With girls basketball and volleyball, basketball is in June, volleyball is in July. Uniforms and mascot. The schools will select a new mascot and colors for the team. The only color I can tell you we'll have for sure is black. And we want that to be one of the colors so we do not have to purchase football helmets and possibly pants. With the mascot, we will have the students in grades K through 12 at both schools vote on them. We have several options that we may have, and they will choose our mascot. We want to embrace our history and tradition, but we feel it is vital to come together as one to reach long-term success. Just screwing around, we put some options together. The herd, the regulators, the warhawks. Those are just some fun ideas, and nothing more than that. How the co-op will work. A co-op must, the state says you have to do a co-op for 2 years. That's the mandatory. And if we're going to do this, we have to have it into the state by June 1st. Okay? Our plan, though, is to do a contract for a cooperation for 5 years. Okay? We'll get set up with attorneys and get the paperwork put together. And then if a school chooses to back out before those 5 years, they will have to reimburse the other school for all their uniform purchases, as well as changes to facilities that they may have done for team colors or mascots. So you're not just going to be able to back out of it without some financial repercussion. Expenditures. Each school district will split costs with all uniforms, officials, entry fees, etc. We do understand that the schools will have gas expenditures for the daily practice travel. That is going to be on, Hayes Center is going to be the one really getting hit on that one. But here's the facts. Even though we will have initial costs this year that are higher, the cost splitting between the two and possible reduction of assistance after the first year will more than make up for these expenditures. After year one, we may cut back to one coach at each place. That is to remain to be seen. We need to see how it goes. We need to see where we're at as far as athletes. Our overall thoughts. Our plan is to create a long-term relationship instead of a quick Band-Aid until numbers possibly go up for either school. We truly believe this co-op is in the best interest of our students having success. We will be able to develop athletes with youth and JV programs because of more numbers. We have not been able to really do JVs appropriately. We've had starters of varsity playing. We've only played half games in basketball. We want to create a culture that supports our children and works towards winning championships. And as I said, the first year we're going to learn a lot, and we will be evaluating the entire process so we can make proper adjustments when we see concerns. Again, these are all the things we've thought of so far, and there's going to be a ton of other things as we go through this. But with that, we'll open it up for questions and comments. If there's someone specific you want to answer, just ask us, Mr. Primavera, whoever.